How do you deal with shooting an event or a concert when the lighting is just horrible? I'm going to give you some options on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey there everybody, welcome back. Here I am, as always, answering your photography questions. If you've got photo questions, you know what to do. You go to askdavidbergman.com, submit your question right there on the site. I just might pick your question to answer here on a future show. Today I've got a question that was sent in by Evan M, and he wants to know, how do you deal with shooting concerts at a small venue when the lights are all heavily saturated colors? Are there certain colors that cannot be fixed and the only choice is to embrace it or make it black and white in post? Evan, that's a great question and something that I have dealt with many, many times throughout my career. I know a lot of you have as well. I'm fortunate enough at this point to be a professional tour photographer, and I travel the world usually working in arenas and stadiums where the light is just fantastic. It's been designed by professional lighting designers, and I don't have to worry about really dim, horrible lighting. But we've all been in the situation where maybe our friend is in a band and they say, hey, we're playing at the club down the street. Can you come photograph me? So how do you deal with that? In most cases, that light is going to be horrible, right? We're talking about one light, on the center of the stage. It's inconsistent. It's maybe a red light. That's often the case where it's just one red light, that saturated red color that you talk about, Evan. That is very, very common in, the corner bar that has a little stage in the corner. So how do you deal with that? Well, there's two ways to do it. And the first one is pretty much what you suggest, Evan, where basically you just used fast lenses. We're talking about like a 50 1.2 or an 85 1.4 or a 1.8 or something like that with a very wide aperture that's going to allow you to get a fast enough shutter speed to freeze the action, right? So you're going to be cranking up your ISO. You're going to be using a high ISO, as high as you can, really as high as you feel comfortable going with your camera, and then you're going to use a fast shutter speed and a very wide aperture, and you're just going to document it as it is. It's going to be challenging because the lead singer is probably going to be moving around. He or she is going to be coming in and out of that spotlight. It's going to be inconsistent. It's going to be challenging, but you just document it as it is and you do the best you can. Those pictures are going to look like it looked to the naked eye when you were there watching the show. So it may be really red, and that's just the way it's going to be. Or, yes, you could go to black and white. I've done that quite often. I use Silver Effects Pro, which is from DxO. It's really a fantastic software program to do very good-looking black and white conversions. I actually used it in this case here where I was working with John Bon Jovi, and I was in the backseat of a car with him, and there was he had just injured his knee during a show, and we were leaving the venue, and we had a police escort, and he was being lit only by a flashing red and blue police light. And I was trying to make pictures. I was trying to be inconspicuous a little bit, but obviously I'm sitting right across from him. And every picture, either he was lit completely blue or completely red. It was very low quantity of light, so I had my ISO way up. I had my shutter speed pretty slow for what it was, and my aperture open as wide as I could with that lens. And the picture that I picked, he's actually completely blue. And the blue is distracting when you look at that photograph. So what I did was I made it black and white, and it's really sort of noisy looking and grainy, and it does kind of look like film grain, which is what Silver Effects Pro is really good at. It makes it look like it used to look in the film days, right? So that was the choice that I made in that case, and I've done that at many, many club concerts or bar concerts, and that is definitely one way to do it. But I challenge you that there is another way to do it, and this is what I've done. Believe me, I've done this many times, and it does work once you figure out how to do it. Now, what I'm going to say may sound controversial, but I'm going to say use flash. Now, before you all jump on me about that, I'm not talking about putting a flash on your camera and just blasting away. I'm also not saying call the club up and say, hey, can I come take pictures and can I use flash? Of course they're going to say no. That's usually the case. They don't want everybody using flashes, a bunch of flash bulbs going off, and it's going to be a distraction to the band and the fans. But here's the thing. If you're friends with the band, if it's your buddy's band and you're going to the show with them, go when they're setting up for sound check or go when they're setting up for the show. And what you want to do is just very casually ask them, say, hey, man, can I just put a flash over here? I'm just going to put it on your amplifier. And they'll be like, yeah, sure, no big deal. Just set it up somewhere where it's not in anybody's way and not in the way of the musicians, but so they can get their instruments or whatever. And just put it over there and don't worry about it. Here's the thing. We now have flashes that we can trigger remotely using radio technology. So that sucker's going to work. Now, you can also do something really interesting. You can put gels on those flashes, and you can start to create colored light that when you take a picture, that flash goes off with that color coming out of that flash. By using just that little gel and taping it on there or putting it on there using any kind of the multitude of systems that are out there to put gels on flashes, you can create your own little light show. Maybe you put one light on an amplifier behind the band. Maybe you put another one out by the bar that's pointed maybe at an angle off to the side that's pointed in towards the lead singer. And maybe a third one off to the side with a red gel on it. And on the one out front, you've got maybe a warming gel, an orange gel on it. Whatever you want to do with your own creativity. But you can create your own little light show that doesn't exist to the naked eye. It only exists in your camera because you're triggering it from your camera using a radio transmitter. When you take the picture, your camera's going to see all that color, but the fans are not. Now, a couple of things I have to say about this. First of all, you need to feel the room. You need to read the room, right? So use some tact and feel it out. If this is like an acoustic, a singer-songwriter night and it's really quiet, I would not start blasting away with flashes. Even if it's a rock show, I don't know that I would necessarily just use bursts and, shoot thousands of images using flash. If it's a big rock show or a metal show or something like that, and everybody's standing and dancing and it's at a club, nobody's going to notice some flashes here and there. So use, again, you got to read the room and do it when it's appropriate. But when you nail this thing, it works really, really well. And basically, let me show you some examples. So this is the Bare Naked Ladies. I was on tour with them for a number of years, and this is on a cruise ship of all places. And the stage lighting, I'm not touching the stage lighting. The light that's hitting the guys, I'm not using a flash on my camera. That's the spotlight coming through, and that's the stage light. However, something I did was I took 2 Speedlights. I put one of them with a blue gel on it, and I used a super clamp and a magic arm, and I put it up on the railing off to the right. Now, again, I'll put links below to all this stuff, the software, Silver FX Pro, and the hardware that I use. This Manfrotto makes a super clamp and then a magic arm that I use to hook remote cameras up, and I've used it for flashes as well. So I use one of those with a blue gel on my flash. This is a Canon Speedlite, a number of years ago, so I'm not sure which one it is. Today I'd be using the 600 EX2 RTs, but whatever it is, whatever flash you've got, put it up there with the blue gel, and that's hitting the crowd. Now, off to the left side, just out of the frame, there's another Speedlite with a super clamp and a magic arm, clamped to the railing with a red gel on it. And those 2 lights, every time I take a picture, they hit the crowd out, watching the show, and they combine to make that sort of ugly magenta color. But here's the thing, the audience doesn't really see that. It's just a flash that goes off, and the band doesn't really care. It's not going to affect them in any way. And if I turn those flashes off, that crowd is going to be black, just pitch black. There's no light there at all. But every time I take a picture, it lights up that whole thing. This is what it looks like from the other side, so you get an idea of where those flashes are and how that light is hitting. And I've created this entire show that nobody else can do. I was working for the band, so I could get in there early, and I made the extra effort to put those lights up. Here's another example. This is my friend Pat McGee. He has a multi-day music festival that I used to do workshops at. I would have a few photographers out, and we'd spend the week together lighting all these different shows. It was great because they had some shows out on the beach, and there's some shows at the clubs, and all different events and different venues. And it really was a fun thing. I got to start doing those workshops again now that we're almost out of this whole pandemic thing. But anyway, contact me if you're interested in that. But what we would do, this entire scene is lit by flashes. I think there are 5 or 6 Speedlights going off every time we take a picture. There's one Speedlite on an amplifier right behind Pat in the middle with a blue gel on it. It's hitting the arm of the guy to his left, but it's also hitting the beams overhead and making them blue. There's also another Speedlite on top of that blue, one of those blue beams in the middle with a red gel on it, and that's lighting the ceiling and making it really red, that roof there, and making it very red. There are 3 or 4 more Speedlights all around out in front that are combining and creating different colors to create this whole scene that did not exist with the human eye. The thing is, because I'm lighting all this, we set this up much earlier in the day. Because I'm lighting all this, I'm at 100 ISO at 5.6 at 200th of a second. So the quality is amazing, right? There's no noise at all. It's not high ISO. I don't have to worry about whatever that stage lighting is. I'm overpowering that anyway. And then the first time I did this was a few years earlier with Pat, and he just loved it. The artists that I've worked with, that I've done this for, I could capture him mid-jump because I'm using flash with a very fast flash duration. I can freeze him in a way that I couldn't do if I was just shooting available light. And once you do this with somebody, when you show them those pictures, they go, "Holy cow, how did you do that?" And you say, I got my secrets, right? You don't have to tell them everything. But the point is, you've created pictures that are different from what everybody else has done, and it really goes a long way in helping to separate you, what you do, from what everybody else can do. So this is how I've made a career for 30 years, trying to separate myself from everybody else and go above and beyond what everybody else is doing. So Evan, that's how I deal with those really bad lighting situations at a concert specifically, but this works at really any event as long as you can get away with using flash and it's not going to be obnoxious. So what do you guys think? Have you done this before? Do you think you're going to try it? I definitely want to see some results. Again, don't get mad at me if you get in trouble. Try to use some tact and read the room, and don't do it if it feels like it's too overpowering. But if you can get away with it at something, a loud show, definitely give it a shot and let me know what you think. Put it down in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear how it goes. Remember, if you're not already a subscriber to the Adorama YouTube channel, go ahead and click that button down below. Use that bell icon. You'll be notified as soon as new photo shows come out all week long. Of course, go to AskDavidBergman.com and ask your own photo questions. Hopefully, I'll answer your question here on a future show. I will be back here every Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern, with a brand new question. I hope you'll join me right here on Ask David Bergman.